we welcome the night.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Horror Night Oasis, a radio show where we discuss all the latest movies and news from the world of horror. Joining me tonight, as always, is my co-host, Ian. Ian, are you there?
I am.
How is everything going on your end, sir?
Been a long week, but...
Yes, it has. But we're here, as always, and it's a new month, and a new month brings a new marathon. And this is the one that I've been looking forward to because, again, there's not many films of this nature out there, and it's few and far between. I mean, we reviewed one, which was, Jesus, how many years ago was that? 3 or 4 years ago? And that was Lore. And there's just not that many that shows up. And, of course, I'm talking about our Mermaid Marathon, or what I call it, our Savage Sirens Marathon, where we will be reviewing mermaid horror for the month of August. I figured since a lot of people are going out to the water, why not have a marathon to justify? And it makes sense. And I figured I had this idea for a while, and we're here to do it. And we have our first film of the month. It's going to be a short month, though. There's only 4 episodes for August, but we'll make do. We might make a double episode. Who knows? Because there's a few, we're talking about off air. But the first one we're going to be reviewing tonight is one that I've been wanting to see, and I've heard mixed things on it, and it's one of those I just wanted to kick off the marathon with, and that is Mermaid Down. Because it sounded intriguing. It was a very interesting concept, and I wanted to see how it played out. And I guess I'll just go ahead and get into the synopsis of it, and then we'll get into our thoughts. So Mermaid Down, this film is sort of in like 3 sections. Even though it's not like an acts or chapters, it feels like 3 different movies in a sense, but we'll get into that here in a second. So the first part of the movie, let's just get into that, is these 2 fishermen on this, boating vessel, this big ship, boating ship, and they're talking back and forth, having a conversation about, 100 years ago or how many ever years ago, there used to be, fishermen used to always see mermaids, and these 2 fishermen go back and forth and decide, what, I have this plan to catch a mermaid, cut its tail off, throw it in the chum bay, and throw the tail overboard. For some reason, that part kind of got lost on me for a second because it comes and goes. Apparently, to sell the mermaid tail, maybe, I don't know. But they decide to go out that way, set sail, find themselves a mermaid, and they do, and they capture a mermaid. And we're introduced to another character. His name's Dr. Bayer. Didn't give no first name, just Bayer. And apparently, that's the one thing that I have with this film is like a lot of things get brought up and they don't really have no answer. Like, why is Dr. Bayer following these two fishermen out to sea? I didn't really understand that. It doesn't really have any correlation at all. It's just he's there for some reason because he's on the phone talking to somebody and like he's, spying, using binoculars on this fishing boat and to see what's going on. And of course he finds out that they caught a mermaid and the two fishermen are going back and forth. And, of course, they get the mermaid, they chop the tail off, throw her in the chum bay, and then Dr. Bayer comes along, and then we have basically killing the fisherman, well, one of them anyway. But basically he kills them, and then he takes the mermaid and the boat and basically puts the mermaid in a women's facility, psychiatric home for girls, and like does all kinds of stuff on her in a sense. And she soon after a while, he's doing all these, he's documenting everything. So her lower half, where the tail was, starts to form a cocoon, and she starts to grow human legs. And so now, she has legs, but she's bound to a wheelchair, and she's in this women's ward that's just, every day. It's like an eye clinic almost. It's just like a random house. Just like, oh, it's an eye doctor right there. It's just like one of those. It's a facility for women, psychiatric ward. And he's, we have, a variety of different girls in there. They're teens, probably in their 20s, somewhere in there. And then we have a weird correlation where there's a ghost in the film, and for a while I didn't really understand where that was going either. Of course, that gets brought up later in the movie, but the ghost and the mermaid, which they call Ruby, I believe, and she also, there's another girl that can see the ghost, but everyone thinks she sees an imaginary friend, and so basically, all the girls sort of pick on Ruby, but again, Ruby's just going around crawling on her arms, trying to get into the pool and everything like that, but swim around and get water on her, and like again, she knows sign language, and like she had the one female doctor there who watches over the girls as well. They have like all these talk circles and everything like that, and there's just, again, a lot of things that goes on in the house, and then it goes into a different part of the movie later on. But anyway, I digest. We'll get into that a little bit later. Now, here's my thoughts. This movie, it was, like I said, it was very intriguing, and it stayed that way for most of the movie, where, because I wanted to know more about, the ghost girl and stuff like that, even though it's fairly obvious where it was going. But there's, like, parts of it. And even, like, later on, like, when they escape, there's, like, the one girl that was, like, mean, who's, like, the bitch of the group. Like, when they escape and all that, there's, like, a part where, like, she was ghost, too, but she wasn't a ghost. And it just felt, I don't know, maybe that's just the way that they forgot to take the effect off or put it on the wrong person. I don't know. It just felt like there was a part there like, wait a second, why is she see-through? But that was just my own, like that's I don't know. I just felt like that way to me. It could have been just the way it was. But anyway, like the movie, it's okay. It's probably going to be the best of the lot. But again, that's not saying much because, again, I don't know the other three films we'll be reviewing. Well, I do, but I don't know how well they'll be made, because this is a pretty well-made movie, even though it really has a lot of there's a movie that it reminded me of, and it's not a horror movie. I don't know if you caught this, Ian, but this movie reminded me of Girl Interrupted. But instead of Angelina Jolie and Winona Ryder, there's a mermaid and a ghost girl. Because it felt very much similar to that movie. Even though they do a lot of, it's two totally different movies, but that was like, of all the movies to remind me of, is Girl Interrupted. And again, I liked aspects of it. I didn't really hate it. But again, after a while, it just like, okay, it's going down a pretty normal path. And like, again, a lot of stuff, just like, it's there for whatever reason, you know, like, oh, you know, it's just, there's just like a lot of things. Of course, they get brought up towards the end of the movie, but for a while there, you're just like questioning everything. Like, again, why he followed the fisherman to the sea at the beginning of the movie, there's no explanation for that. Why is there a sub basement filled with water and holding cells, and like there's another sub basement underneath that with a dog? Like, so how does he feed the dog? Apparently, there's like that. And there's like all these things that just like don't really make sense, and you're just left with like, okay. And then there's parts like the ghost girl, like, of course that gets brought up later in the movie, like she's stuck in these rooms, but she's a ghost, and then towards the end of the movie she finally figures out she can go through walls. And then there's like the part like where they put the mermaid in the holding cell, like the ghost girl's there, but then later on the ghost girl's upstairs talking to another girl, and like, well, how did she get there? And then it shows the mermaid coming up the steps, and like, okay, so who let her out? There's like a lot of things there that just like, there's just like unanswered questions, and it just like didn't really make too much sense to the whole correlation of the story. Even though I guess it wasn't, I don't know, it felt odd choices there. Again, the doctor and what he does eventually kind of doesn't come out of left, kind of doesn't make sense, and like, I wouldn't say the movie falls apart towards the end, but it's just a lot of stuff. I mean, it makes sense, the overall story, but like just the structure of it kind of falls apart on the wayside a little bit. Like, there's like part of it, like when when they leave, like no one makes mentions of it, like they're gone for all this time, and then like the ghost girl's like, she can touch things, she can touch objects in the real world, and like do things, and like things are holding up, and there's a scene towards the end where like she's wanting to cover up the Ruby, the mermaid, and like she's putting blankets on her and covering her up, and then pushing her in the wheelchair, and then that just doesn't really make, like, again, like she's doing all these things, and then towards the end of the movie, oh, I can go through a wall, a bookcase, and then like the whole reason, like I don't understand, like towards the end either, like he wants, like, oh, you ruined my career, stuff like that, and like he takes the boat and does the thing there, just like a lot of things, just like, and then the finale just like kind of doesn't fall into place either. But I'm going all over the place with my rambling, so Ian, I'll let you talk a little bit about it, and what you have to say, and then we'll go back and forth and see what we can do.
How he feeds the dogs is all his patients that leave. I think instead they just feed the dog with the patients, because she had the caretaker was like, why won't you let me know where she's at? I'm just worried about her. She's like, no. And that came shortly after we saw that corpse in the basement where the dog had gnawed on. So I think that's where that went. As far as that, about the doctor following the thing, I think they should have at least showed a scene where he like overheard them, because it seems like he's trying to capture like supernatural people or something, because a few people kind of seemed to be like had supernatural gifts, but not like supernatural. I don't know. I that's what I was thinking. Like, I was like, maybe he's just, I don't know. I think I was just trying to make some sense of the lack of, puzzle pieces were missing from the film. But I overall, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the cinematography. I thought the opening scene with the two men were kind of weird when they were pulling out that little children's tea set. That little girl's tea set, and started drinking like alcohol out of it. I was like, is this supposed to be I was honestly, after that, I kind of started expecting it to be like a dark comedy, but I thought it was a good movie. I probably honestly could watch it again, but there was too many unanswered questions. Just, I don't know. I feel like
and just like character choices and like how he like started one way and ended. Of course, it's like, the story arc of a character. He's like the one that was a bitch to Ruby, the mermaid, and then all of a sudden she gets hugged and that changes her or something. It just like a lot of stuff like didn't make sense. Well, I mean it did, but just the way that it was portrayed on the screen just felt odd. And it's like, oh, I'm a bit, I'm the bitch character, and then all of a sudden, oh, she actually, she is, like she's like, oh, you're gonna catch pneumonia and change your heart, and then she hugged her for some reason, then that started her to cry, and then it's just like, where'd that come from? And then again, like the ghost stuff. I mean, it comes on to play later on in the movie, but for a while there, I was like, okay, why is there a ghost? I mean, I'm assuming, like after, you see one thing, like, okay, that's that, but then you kind of realize later on, like, okay, that makes sense, but, like, why is she at this facility and not, apparently, because it's not where, that is, I'm not want to give too much away, but, like, shouldn't that part be there instead of where it was, haunting that place instead of the other place,
Yeah.
Because that's where her...
And I think maybe she didn't think I don't know, unless I missed something, but her not being able to go through walls, I felt like that might have, like, toward the end, it started making sense. Like, it was like, instead of her not being able to do it, just her, like, actually scared to do it. Like, because of what is revealed later on. Like, that's what I kind of, because that's what I kind of started making, like, this is odd. Like, why would a ghost not be able to walk through walls if they could, like, put their hand through other objects? Like, I watched her put her hand in stuff. So, like, why would she be scared to go through a wall?
Yeah, but the only thing she wasn't able to touch was, like, the mermaid, remember? But, like, all the inanimate objects, and she was able to push stuff, but she wasn't able to, hold hands with the mermaid. And, again, most ghosts do that with the touch and having an object. I mean, it makes sense. But there's still a lot of things there, just odd structural choices in the storytelling of things. Like, again, just like him going crazy at the end because like, oh, yeah, I can't have anyone know. But, like, okay. For what reason? Like, people like, okay, now, because again, like through most of the movie, like they don't believe, like when she starts doing the sign language, and like, oh, I'm a mermaid, I'm and they start talking about this, backstory of like
came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, I was just like, so she knows sign language, and I was like, well, at least they gave her kind of a, made it coherent of why she just randomly knows sign language. And
they had to get a specialist to read it, but then the other girl knew it. Like, what was it just didn't seem like, it was like weird.
Yeah. Well, I wonder if, because that's where I was kind of starting to think. I was like, maybe they all have like, some kind of special gifts or something, because like, her just knowing it. Like, she didn't understand at first, but then she just started getting it. So, I don't know. And then I was kind of hoping they were all, like, it turned out that they were all mermaids. And I was like, I've had a feeling that's where it was going to go, but it didn't. So I was kind of, happy that they didn't do that whole shtick.
Mm-hmm.
But I was like, because I hate when there's like, oh, yay, we're all... No, thank God. But, I digress on that. I just... there's like a lot that happens that you can't really give too much away, like too much spoilers, because it's still a fairly new movie, and trying to like navigate around that, talk about like all the honestly everything I want to talk about is like spoiler ridden, but I really liked how the actress portray, like, you know, I thought she did a fairly decent job at like portraying herself as like a mermaid, and
fish out of water.
Yeah, really enjoyed that. Like, she sold it on the like, you know, not being able to walk, and, like, just the way she was crawling, like, it looked like, you know, she had been practicing. Like, it did not feel like it was, like, you know, it's just like, oh, you're over it. You know, it wasn't overacting. It wasn't really underacting. I thought it was a really good performance. Honestly, all of the cast did a pretty good job. The doctor was the one I had a kind of an issue with, just because, like, he was so stiff. And I get that that's kind of like what he was supposed to be, but it felt like he was trying too hard to play like this creepy doctor guy that was like psychotic. And I was like, his performance was the only one that I kind of had a problem with.
Yeah, I mean, towards the beginning of the movie, like, I was thinking this movie was going to be like sort of had like a mean streak to it, or sort of be like misogynistic or something like that. But sadly, it doesn't do that, you know, because they're like, okay, if it can, you know, like that first half, like, again, it's like three sections. There's the ship section, the house section, and the boat section. And, you know, I was like assuming like if they kept that ship portion the way it did for like the most of the movie, I mean, that could have been a pretty, you know, sort of mean-spirited, you know, mermaid movie. And, you know, not, you know, sort of dark in a sense and a dark in a tone. And I kind of hoped that because it felt that way. It had like a weird dread sense to it, that first section with the, you know, the fisherman chopping the mermaid off. And then, like, it just, there was something to it that was there. And then the rest of the movie just loses all that. And I was like, oh, man, that could have been so good if they kept that, the way that atmosphere was, the you know, the fisherman section.
Like, yeah, because the two fishermen kind of, like, the dialogue and everything, not exactly, but it kind of reminded me a little bit of, like, how in, like, the lighthouse, where they were, like, that little banter going on. And the two security guards were just, like, I guess supposed to be the comic relief. Because they have some good, like, goofy lines. I was just was laughing at them. Like, they're like, yeah, I can't go down in there. It's too dark. Maybe if I had a drink. Yeah, definitely. Like, if I had a margarita, I would totally
with coffee. Did you get that? Like, why do they almost every conversation have something to do with coffee? Like the two fishermen talked about coffee, and then like, oh, you want some coffee? Oh, the water's bad for coffee. It's like, where's this coffee coming from?
I don't know. Maybe the guy's obsessed with coffee.
Yeah, no. I was just like, why is every person talking about coffee? It was just so weird.
Maybe they were trying to do some kind of art house with that, where they just like have like a mention, like, I don't know.
I mean, it's stupid to talk about, but still, like, it gets brought up a lot. So you have to, like, I mean, I know it's probably just something like nothing. You know, it's just like, oh, it's coffee, you know, whatever. But, like, everyone was talking about coffee. Every other, like, you know, like, scene started with, like, coffee talk. And it was, you know, it was just like that first half was, like, nothing but, like, coffee. It was so funny.
Yeah. Yeah, no, like, I mean, maybe he brings up coffee a lot. Like, I know plenty of people, like, half the time on my Facebook, especially in the morning, I see nothing but posts about coffee. I'm just like, I don't even like coffee. And it's like, I don't know. Maybe
there's
something to do with it.
Yeah, we forgot to mention, like you said, the mermaid. The actors who played the mermaid did good. I gotta say, the mermaid itself, the effect, the fin, it looks pretty good when they went into it. It looked actually, it looked pretty solid.
I thought it was going to be some stupid CGI when I first turned it on, because that's usually how these mermaid movies go. But it was believable, especially those pictures, the case file photos.
The cocoon
gave me the creeps. Honestly, I was like, this looks like, obviously the guy, the people who did it actually took those photos, but I was just real photos and not just
Yeah, see, that's what I said earlier. They kept that dread, the first half of the fisherman, and just added that with the creepy, mermaid photos and the cocoon, and it would have been something, man. It'd been something like a mermaid movie in the style of Seven, in a sense. This is weird. It's just it'd been a little creepy little, monster movie with a little mean-spirited twist to it. But in the end, it just went it's all girl-interrupted, girl power, and we got to do this, and it's just not have anything wrong with it. It's just
Yeah. Well, I absolutely thought it was great how they built up the mermaids. They put more care into making the lore for the mermaids. I thought that was pretty solid. Honestly, that was the most solid thing about the movie. Especially the whole cocoon and transforming, explaining legs. If your tail gets cut off, you grow legs.
If you're outside of the water and you have to get back to water, else you'll die. Or the ocean, and just there's all this stuff to it. Like I said, it would have been a good little, dark, movie, and it could have been hit that sweet spot a little bit, but it's just the atmosphere just kind of just loses itself to become, what I said earlier, and it's just there was a sweet spot there. There was a sweet spot, and he just just missed the mark. He's it was like listening to a record. And this is what, and the needle on the record is not the best. It's not new, so it misses the mark, or it every now and then it skips. And that's what this movie felt like to me in certain aspects. It's a good song, but it skips every so often, and you have to crap.
Yeah.
That was, it's just it could have been something. It's just that it didn't. The needle didn't hit the groove properly, and it just ended up being a sub, it's decent, but it's kind of subpar at best, and it's just it could have been something.
Right, I agree with that too, because once the first half, I kind of was expecting a completely different movie, but then once they all the girls get introduced and everything, it does get a completely different feel. And, and I do think it would have been a whole lot better if they would have kept it. But, I did still enjoy what I watched. And I'm, honestly, that's more than what I was expecting from a mermaid movie anyway. You don't get really many good mermaid movies. They're usually too cliched. And I felt like this one kind of broke away from that a little bit. And I do think that this, hopefully this is not the best out of all of these movies. I'm hoping that, this kind of gave me hope that the rest of them might be somewhat decent, because a couple of them have a really good synopsis.
Premise. Good premise.
So
on a few of these coming up, but I said, it's decent. It's not the best. Like I said, it's a good song, but the needle skips on it, and it's just kind of you don't get the enjoyment out of it like you should. And so it's like that's the best thing I can really say. I mean, I think I enjoyed what I watched. I mean, I'm like right there with you, and I enjoyed what I watched. But again, it could have been so much more if they kept that tone on the fisherman part, and just like again, everything would have fit perfectly in that groove, but they just went outside and it skipped all over the place, and it's just like a lot of unanswered things, and it's just like it's there, but it's just like you missed the mark. And I mean, I can't really say that much more. I mean, it's worth a watch. I mean, I'm right there with you, and I want to see what the other ones have. But honestly, I think this might be the best one. But who knows? We have a couple other ones to watch. But I'm looking forward to the other ones because again, we compiled a list. This is one I've compiled over a while. And again, what list is there? There's not that many mermaid movies out there. But hey, you make do, But I mean, I don't think there's really that much else to say. Ian, you got any final thoughts?
Not really.
Well, I guess that is going to do it for our inaugural episode of our Savage Sirens Marathon. Again, we have 3 more episodes, 3 more weeks of our marathon because August is a short month for the show, apparently, and we have to make do with what we're given. And I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be a solid month. Hopefully it's going to be better than our doll marathon. And so anything can beat that one. anything can beat that. But, yeah, as always, Ian, it's great to talk with you every chance I get. And I'm looking forward to our next film for our Savage Sirens. And thanks, everyone, for listening, and we will see you next time.